Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the viewing window of Luna Station, watching the stars with tired eyes. The coffee in his hand had gone cold hours ago, but he did not notice. His mind was focused on the reports coming from the deep space sensors. Another star system had gone dark. Another world was burning. The war had been going on for 3 years now. 3 alien powers fought each other across the galaxy like angry children fighting over toys. The Zephyrian Empire wanted to control everything. The Keth Collective believed in their strange group mind ideas. The Valorian Republic claimed they fought for freedom. Jake thought they were all crazy. "Sir?" "Another message from the Zephyrians," said Lieutenant Amy Davis, walking up behind him. She carried a data pad with the latest communication. "They want to meet again. They say they have a better offer this time." Jake turned away from the window. Luna Station was humanity's main defense post, built inside an old mining complex on Earth's moon. Through the thick glass, he could see Earth hanging in space like a blue and white marble. It looked peaceful from here. It was hard to believe that 50 years ago, humans had almost destroyed their own world in terrible wars. "What do they offer now?" Jake asked, taking the data pad. "Advanced weapons technology. Faster ships. They say we could have our own piece of the galaxy if we join them against the other two." Jake almost laughed. The aliens never seemed to understand. Humans very well. They thought everyone wanted to conquer and rule like they did. They did not know that humans had learned hard lessons about war. Earth still had scars from the global conflicts. Cities that were still being rebuilt. Families that were still broken. "Send the same answer we always send," Jake said. "Earth stays neutral. We want no part in their war." Amy nodded and walked away. Jake knew she would be back soon with another message, probably from the Keth Collective this time. They sent messages every few days. Sometimes they threatened. Sometimes they promised great things. Sometimes they just seemed confused about why humans would not pick a side. The door to the command center opened, and Captain Ben Rogers walked in. Ben was younger than Jake, with brown hair and bright green eyes. He commanded the exploration, ship Terra Nova, one of the few human ships that still traveled far from Earth. Most of the fleet stayed close to home these days, watching and waiting. "Admiral," Ben said, walking over to the star charts on the wall, "I just got back from the Outer Rim. You need to see this." Ben pointed to a section of the galaxy map where several star systems were marked in red. 3 more systems went dead while I was out there. The fighting is getting worse. The aliens are using bigger weapons now. Planet killers. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. How many people? Hard to say. The Valorians had colonies in 2 of those systems. Maybe 50 million people, maybe more. Ben's voice was quiet. There was nothing left but space dust and radiation. The 2 men stood in silence for a moment. Jake thought about 50 million lives snuffed out in an instant. The aliens seemed to think this was normal, just part of war. But humans remembered what it felt like to lose everything. "The Terra Nova's crew is asking questions," Ben continued. "They want to know why we do nothing. Some of them think we should help the Valorians. They seem the most like us. And some probably think we should help the Zephyrians because they are stronger," Jake replied. "And others might say the Keth Collective has interesting ideas about peace." He shook his head. "That is exactly why we stay out. The moment we pick a side, we become part of the problem." Through the speakers, another voice called out. "Admiral Morrison to the communications center. Priority message from Earth." Jake and Ben walked to the communication room. On the main screen appeared the face of President Lisa Carter. She was a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp blue eyes. She had been a soldier once before she became a politician. She understood war better than most. "Admiral, I just finished reading your latest reports," President Carter said. "The Earth Council met for 6 hours today. The debate was intense." "Let me guess," Jake said. "Some want to get involved." "More than some. Senator Collins thinks we should offer our services as peacekeepers. Senator Brown believes we should join the strongest side and end this quickly. They both have supporters." Jake was not surprised. Every time the news showed pictures of burning worlds and dying aliens, more people on Earth wanted to do something. It was human nature to want to help, but it was also human nature to make things worse when trying to help. "What did you tell them?" Jake asked. "The same thing I always tell them. We stay neutral. We protect Earth and our few colonies. We do not get involved in alien wars." President Carter paused. "But Jake, the pressure is growing. Every day more. People ask why we have all these ships and soldiers if we never use them to help anyone. Because the moment we use them, they become targets," Jake replied. "Earth becomes a target. Our colonies become targets. We learned this lesson with our own blood." "I know, and I agree. But I need you to be ready. If something changes, if Earth or our people are threatened directly, everything changes." The communication ended, leaving Jake and Ben alone with their thoughts. Outside the window, Earth continued its slow dance around the sun, protected by distance and human wisdom. But Jake wondered how long that protection would last. "Ben, how many ships do we have ready for deep space operations?" Jake asked. 12. Battleships, 36 destroyers, and about 60 smaller ships. All of them designed for defense, not invasion. "Good. Keep them that way. But make sure they are ready. Something tells me this war is not going to stay far away forever." As if to prove his point, another alarm sounded in the distance. Another star system had gone silent. Another world had died in the alien war that seemed to grow hungrier every day. Jake returned to his window and his cold coffee, watching the stars and wondering how long Earth could stay out of the fire that was consuming the galaxy. In his heart, he feared they would find out soon enough. Dr. Amy Phillips stepped out of the transport shuttle and took her first breath of Haven's air. The planet smelled like flowers and rain, with a hint of something sweet she could not name. Above her, 2 purple moons hung in the green-tinted sky, and strange birds with silver wings flew between the tall blue trees. "Welcome to paradise," said Commander Rick Lawson, walking up beside her. He was a big man with kind eyes and an easy smile. His uniform was simple brown cloth, not military armor. On Haven, there was no need for weapons or war gear. Amy looked around at the landing site. Humans in work clothes were building homes from local wood and stone. Children ran between the construction sites, playing games and laughing. The sound of hammers and saws mixed with the alien bird songs to create a music of peace and hope. "Hard to believe this place is real," Amy said, adjusting her research pack. She was here to study the planet's unique plant life. Haven's plants could grow in ways that Earth plants could not. Some of them seemed to glow with their own light. Others changed colors with the weather. 50,000 people call it home now, Rick said with pride. Scientists, teachers, farmers, engineers, even some artists and musicians. We built something good here. They walked along a path made of smooth stones toward the main settlement. Amy could see the research center in the distance, a large building with many windows that caught the alien sunlight. Around it were smaller buildings, homes, schools, workshops, and gardens where Earth vegetables grew next to alien fruits. Any problems with security? Amy asked. She knew that Rick's job was to keep everyone safe, though there seemed to be little danger on this peaceful world. Rick laughed. The biggest problem we have is keeping kids away from the crystal flowers. They are pretty, but they make you dizzy if you smell them too much. Last week I had to rescue a cat that got stuck up one of the singing trees. They passed a playground where human children played with toys made from Haven's colorful wood. A little girl with blonde hair was showing a boy how to make the local flowers change colors by humming to them. The boy was amazed when the blue petals turned bright orange. "That's Katie Sullivan," Rick said, waving to the girl. "She's 10 years old and knows more about this planet than most of our scientists. Her father works in the mining station and her mother teaches at the school." Katie ran over to them, her face bright with excitement. "Dr. Phillips, I heard you were coming. Want to see something cool?" Without waiting for an answer, she led them to a small garden where strange vines grew in perfect spirals around crystal poles. "Watch this," Katie said. She sang a soft melody, and the vines began to glow with soft blue light. The light pulsed in time with her song, creating patterns that danced up and down the spirals. Amy stared in wonder. "How did you learn to do that?" "The plants taught me," Katie said, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. "If you listen carefully, they sing back to you. Most grown-ups are too busy to hear it." As they continued toward the research center, Amy met more of the colonists. There was Tom Henderson, a farmer who had learned to grow earth wheat alongside alien grains that tasted like honey. His wife Sarah ran the community kitchen, where people came together every evening to share meals and stories. Dr. Marcus Cole showed Amy around the research labs. They were studying everything from the planet's strange physics to its remarkable ecosystem. "The whole planet seems to work together," he explained. "The plants, the animals, even the weather. It all connects in ways we are just beginning to understand." In the medical center, Dr. Lisa Park was treating a worker who had cut his hand on a sharp tool. "Injuries heal faster here," she said, cleaning the wound. "Something in the air, maybe, or the water. We are still figuring it out." The school was Amy's favorite building. Inside, 30 children from ages 5 to 15 learned everything, from basic math to advanced alien biology. The teacher, Mrs. Carol White, had been a professor on Earth before coming to Haven. "We teach them to be curious about everything," Mrs. White explained. "On Earth, children learn to be afraid of the unknown. Here they learn to explore it." Amy spent her first week settling into her new laboratory and meeting the research teams. The work was amazing. Haven's plants could do things that should have been impossible. Some could store energy from the planet's 3 suns and release it as light at night. Others could change their chemical structure to match whatever nutrients. The soil was missing. But it was not just the science that made Haven special. It was the people. Without the pressure of war or politics, humans had built something beautiful. Families had time to be together. Artists had space to create. Scientists could study pure knowledge without worrying about military applications. Commander Rick showed Amy the security station one evening. It was a small building with communication equipment and a few emergency supplies. "This is our entire defense force," he said, pointing to 6 men and women in simple uniforms. "No weapons except some stunners for dangerous animals. No military training except basic first aid and emergency response." "What if someone attacks?" Amy asked. Rick looked, surprised by the question. "Who would attack us? We have nothing anyone wants except knowledge and peace. Besides, this sector is empty. The war is happening hundreds of light years away. Amy watched the sunset paint Haven's sky in shades of gold and purple. The two moons were rising, and the singing trees had begun their evening concert. Children were coming home for dinner, and the smell of cooking food drifted from the community kitchen. She thought about Earth, where people still lived in fear of another war. Where cities had walls and soldiers stood guard, where children learned to duck and cover before they learned to read. Haven was everything Earth could be if humans could just stop being afraid. "Rick," she said, "this place is perfect." "That's what we hoped for," he replied. "A place where humans could be the best version of themselves. No war, no hate, no fear. Just people living and learning and growing together." As if to prove his point, Katie Sullivan ran past, chasing one of the silver-winged birds while her parents watched and laughed. The bird seemed to be playing with her, flying just fast enough to stay ahead but slow enough to keep the game fun. Amy smiled and made a decision. She would not just study Haven's plants. She would study how humans could build paradise when they put their minds to it. This colony was proof that people could choose peace over war, cooperation over competition, love over fear. She had no way of knowing that far across the galaxy, an alien general was reading reports about a human research facility and making very different assumptions about what the people of Haven were really doing on their beautiful, peaceful world. General Marcus Webb stared at the battle reports on his command screen with bloodshot eyes. The Zephyrian Empire was losing the war, and everyone knew it. His fleet had been pushed back from 6 star systems in the past month. The Keth Collective was gaining ground in the north while the Valorian Republic pressed hard from the south. Webb was tired. He had been fighting this war for 3 years without a real victory. His soldiers were demoralized. His ships needed repairs he could not afford. His superiors back home were starting to question his leadership. He needed something to change the tide of battle, and he needed it soon. "Sir," said Captain Vex, his intelligence officer, "we have new information about the humans." Webb looked up with interest. The humans were a mystery that bothered him. They had ships, soldiers, and technology that could tip the balance of the war. Yet they refused to join any side. They claimed to want peace, but Webb did not believe in peace. In his experience, everyone wanted power. They just hid it better sometimes. "What did you find?" Webb asked. Captain Vex activated a holographic display showing a star system on the edge of explored space. Long-range scouts detected significant human activity in the Kepler 442 system. They have established a major facility on the 4th planet. "What kind of facility?" "Unknown, sir. The humans call it a research station, but our analysis suggests something more. The energy readings are enormous. They have been shipping large amounts of equipment there for months. Heavy machinery, rare metals, quantum processing units." Webb leaned forward in his chair. Quantum processing units were used in advanced weapon systems. "How many humans?" "Estimated 50,000, sir. Far too many for a simple research station." Webb's mind began to work. 50,000 humans in a secret facility, using military-grade equipment, claiming to do research. It sounded like a weapons development program to him. The humans were probably building superweapons while pretending to be neutral. They would wait until the 3 empires had weakened each other, then emerge with their new technology to conquer everyone. "Clever," Webb muttered. "Very clever." "Sir?" Captain Vex looked confused. "The humans are not neutral, Captain. They are playing a longer game. While we fight each other, they build weapons in secret. When we are all weak, they will strike." Captain Vex studied the data again. "The intelligence is not complete, sir. We could be wrong about their intentions." No, Webb said firmly. I have fought humans before, during the border skirmishes. They are sneaky and dangerous. They make plans within plans. This so-called research station is obviously a weapon factory. Webb stood up and walked to the tactical display. His fleet was small now, only 30 ships, but they were still powerful. If he could capture or destroy the human facility, he might gain access to their technology, or at least prevent them from using it against the Zephyrian Empire. Prepare the fleet for immediate departure, Webb ordered. We are going to pay the humans a visit. Sir, our orders are to defend the Proxima sector, Captain Vex protested. If we leave, the Valorians will break through our lines. Let them, Webb snapped. This is more important. If the humans complete their weapon program, sectors will not matter. We will all be slaves to Earth. 3 days later, Webb's fleet jumped into hyperspace. The journey to the Kepler 442 system would take 2 weeks, giving Webb time to plan his attack. He studied every piece of intelligence about the human facility, looking for weaknesses. The planet they called Haven was lightly defended. Only a few security officers, no military weapons, no defensive systems. It seemed too easy, which made Webb more suspicious. The humans were either very confident in their secrecy, or they had hidden defenses he could not detect. Sir, said Commander Drix, his tactical officer, long-range sensors show no weapons platforms around the planet. No military ships. If this is a weapon factory, it is very poorly defended. That is what they want us to think, Webb replied. Humans are masters of deception. They probably have cloaked defenses or underground bunkers full of soldiers. As his fleet approached the system, Webb grew more convinced he was right. The AE, humans had built their secret base far from Earth, away from prying eyes. They were preparing for war while pretending to want peace. It was exactly what he would have done in their position. All ships, prepare for battle, Webb ordered as they dropped out of hyperspace near Haven. Target all major structures. We will give them one chance to surrender. Then we destroy everything. The planet hung before them like a green and blue jewel, its 2 purple moons casting strange shadows on the surface. It looked peaceful and beautiful, which only made Webb more angry. How dare the humans build weapons in such a lovely place? Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the planet, reported the communications officer. On the main screen appeared the face of a human male in a simple brown uniform. He looked confused and frightened, not like a military commander at all. This is Commander Rick Lawson of Haven Colony, the human said. Why are your ships here? We are a peaceful research station. We have no weapons. Webb almost laughed. The human was a good actor, but not good enough. I am General Marcus Webb of the Zephyrian Empire. You will surrender your facility immediately and allow us to inspect your weapon development programs. Weapon programs? Rick looked genuinely puzzled. We do not have any weapons here. We study plants and animals. We have families, children, schools. This is a civilian colony. Do not lie to me, human, Webb shouted. We know what you are doing. 50,000 workers, military-grade equipment, quantum processors. You think we are fools? Please, General, there has been some mistake. Let me show you our research data. You can see for yourself that we are not making weapons. Webb cut the transmission. He had heard enough lies. The human commander was either a very good actor or genuinely believed his own cover story. Either way, Webb could not take the risk of letting the weapon program continue. All ships, begin orbital bombardment, Webb ordered. Target the main research center first, then the industrial areas. Leave the residential sections for last. I want prisoners for interrogation. Sir, Captain Vex said quietly. What if we are wrong? What if this really is just a civilian colony? Webb turned on him with fury. Then why are you questioning my orders, Captain? Do you think I enjoy killing innocents? This is war. If we do not stop the humans now, they will stop us later. The first energy blasts struck Haven's surface like lightning from an angry god. The research center, where Dr. Amy Phillips had been studying the singing plants, vanished in a ball of fire. The workshops where Tom Henderson had learned to blend Earth and alien agriculture disappeared in seconds. On the planet's surface, alarms began to sound. Commander Rick Lawson ran toward the communications center, trying to understand what was happening. This had to be some kind of mistake. Haven was peaceful, neutral, harmless. But the bombardment continued. The school where Katie Sullivan had been learning about alien biology took a direct hit. The medical center where Dr. Lisa Park had marveled at the planet's healing properties crumbled under the assault. Rick managed to send one final transmission before the communication array was destroyed. His message was simple and desperate. This is Haven Colony. We are under attack. We are civilians. Please help us. Then the transmission ended, and General Webb watched the peaceful planet burn. In his mind, he had struck a blow against human treachery. In reality, he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The emergency alarm in Luna Station had never sounded like this before. Admiral Jake Morrison ran through the corridors toward the communication center, his heart pounding with a fear he had not felt since the global conflicts. Behind him, officers and technicians hurried to their stations, their faces tight with worry. "What do we have?" Jake demanded as he burst into the communication room. Lieutenant Amy Davis looked up from her console, her face pale. "Emergency beacon from Haven Colony? Sir, automated distress signal. They are under attack." Jake felt the world stop moving around him. Haven was supposed to be safe. It was in empty space, far from the war. No one should have even known it existed. Who is attacking them? He asked, though part of him already knew the answer. Zephyrian Empire ships, sir. The beacon transmitted their energy signatures before. It went dead. Jake stared at the communication screen, watching the final data streams from Haven fade to nothing. 50,000 people, families, children, scientists who had never hurt anyone in their lives, all of them under attack by aliens, who should have had no reason to target them. "Get me President Carter," Jake ordered. Priority 1. While they established the connection to Earth, Jake pulled up the files on Haven Colony. Dr. Amy Phillips, studying alien plants. Commander Rick Lawson, keeping peace among civilians. Tom and Sarah Henderson, growing food for their neighbors. Katie Sullivan, a 10-year-old girl who could make flowers glow by singing to them. The screen activated, showing President Lisa Carter in her office. It was early morning on Earth, but she looked like she had not slept. Her assistant must have woken her with the news. "Jake," she said, her voice heavy with grief, "tell me it is not as bad as the initial reports." "It is worse," Jake replied. "Complete communications blackout. The automated systems suggest massive orbital bombardment. If anyone survived, they are in the underground shelters." President Carter closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, Jake saw something he had never seen before. The careful politician was gone, replaced by the old soldier who had fought in the global conflicts. "How long to get a rescue fleet to Haven?" she asked. 18 hours, if we push the engines hard. But, Madam President, sending ships there means abandoning our neutrality. Once we respond militarily to an attack, we are at war. They attacked our children, Jake. Carter's voice was cold as space. They burned our schools and hospitals. Neutrality died the moment they opened fire. Jake nodded. He had known this. Moment would come eventually. Humanity could not stay out of the galaxy's wars forever, but he had hoped it would be their choice, not forced on them by alien aggression. I will need authorization to arm the fleet for combat operations, Jake said. You have it. Full authorization. I will handle the Earth Council. The connection ended, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts for a moment. Then training took over, and he began issuing orders. Within minutes, Luna Station was a hive of activity as the Earth Defense Fleet prepared for its first real combat mission. Captain Ben Rogers arrived in the command center 15 minutes later, still putting on his uniform. Admiral, the Terra Nova is ready for immediate departure. What are our orders? Take your ship and get to Haven as fast as possible, Jake told him. Find survivors, establish a safe zone, and report back. The main fleet will follow in 12 hours. Ben nodded and turned to leave, then stopped. Sir, what about the rules of engagement? If we encounter Zephyrian ships? Jake thought about Katie Sullivan singing to alien flowers. Defend yourself and the survivors. Beyond that, we will decide when we see what is left of our people. As Ben hurried away to his ship, Jake walked to another part of the station where Chief Engineer Tony Martinez was already at work. Tony was a small man with quick hands and a brilliant mind for spacecraft design. He had been modifying human ships for exploration and defense. Now, he would modify them for war. How long to retrofit the fleet with combat systems? Jake asked. Tony looked up from his work, his hands covered in grease and his eyes bright with anger. The hulls are strong, Admiral. The engines are fast, but our weapons are designed for asteroid mining and space construction, not ship-to-ship combat. What can you do? Give me 8 hours, and I can turn mining lasers into ship killers. Our missile systems are already military grade. We just never loaded them with warheads. The real advantage is our armor. Earth ships are built to survive. Asteroid impacts and solar radiation. They can take more punishment than anything the aliens have. Jake nodded. Do it. Whatever you need, you have it. As Tony went back to his work, Jake received another message. This one was from Earth's orbital shipyards. The facilities that had been building colony ships and research vessels were already switching to military production. Humanity's industrial might, held in check for decades, was awakening like a sleeping giant. But the most important message came 2 hours later. A faint signal from Haven's surface, transmitted on an emergency frequency that barely had enough power to reach the nearest relay station. This is Dr. Lisa Park in Shelter 7. We have approximately 3,000 survivors in the underground facilities. The surface is heavily damaged. We need immediate medical assistance and evacuation capability. Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him. 3,000 people out of 50,000 was terrible, but it was 3,000 more than he had dared hope for. Get me a response channel, he ordered. Dr. Park, this is Admiral Morrison. Help is on the way. Stay in the shelters and keep your people safe. We will have you out of there soon. The response came back weak and full of static. Admiral, the children are asking when they can go home. What do I tell them? Jake looked out at the stars where human ships were preparing for war. Tell them that home is wherever their families are, and tell them that no one will ever hurt them like this again. After the communication ended, Jake called his senior staff together. Around the table sat the officers who would lead humanity's first interstellar war. They were explorers and scientists, engineers and peacekeepers. None of them had wanted to be soldiers, but the galaxy had made that choice for them. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jake began, "in 18 hours we will arrive at Haven. We will rescue our people and secure the area. After that, we will track down the ships that attacked our colony. We will find the officers who gave the orders. And we will make sure they understand that attacking human civilians was the biggest mistake they ever made." Captain Rogers spoke up from the communication screen, already aboard the Terra Nova. "Admiral, what if the Zephyrians try to claim this was a misunderstanding? What if they say they thought Haven was a military target?" Jake thought about that for a moment. In the old days before the global conflicts, humans might have accepted such an explanation. They might have demanded an apology and some compensation, then gone back to their neutral corner. But those days were over. The moment Zephyrian weapons had fired on human children, everything had changed. "Then we will explain to them," Jake said quietly, "that some mistakes cannot be forgiven." As the meeting ended and his officers dispersed to their ships, Jake remained in the command center. On the main screen, he could see Earth hanging in space, peaceful and blue. Soon that peace would be over. Humanity was going to war, not because they wanted to, but because someone had forced them to. Jake thought about General Webb, the Zephyrian commander who had ordered the attack. The alien probably thought he had struck a blow against human weapons development. He had no idea that he had actually awakened something far more dangerous than any weapon humanity might have built. He had awakened humanity's protective instincts, and that was something the galaxy was not prepared for. Admiral Jake Morrison's fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Haven system like avenging angels emerging from the darkness. 36 human warships, their hulls gleaming with fresh armor plating and their weapons charged for battle. But what they found was not a fight. It was a graveyard. Haven hung in space like a wounded animal. From orbit, Jake could see the scars left by the Zephyrian bombardment. The research center was gone, replaced by a crater that glowed with residual energy. The school where children had learned was now just twisted metal and ash. The community. Buildings where families had gathered for meals were smoking ruins. "My God!" whispered Captain Susan Walsh from her destroyer. "They hit everything. Schools, hospitals, homes. What kind of animals do this?" Jake studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet was gone, probably hours ahead of them. Cowards, who attacked civilians and then ran before real soldiers could respond. But their work was thorough. Haven's beautiful cities were destroyed. Its singing trees were silent. Its crystal flowers lay shattered in fields of glass. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Davis from the communication station. "I have contact with the survivors. Dr. Lisa Park is coordinating from Shelter 7. The main screen activated, showing a tired woman with short brown hair and dirt on her face. Behind her, Jake could see other survivors moving around what looked like an underground medical station. Children sat quietly in corners while adults tried to treat injuries with whatever supplies they had. "Admiral Morrison," Dr. Park said, relief clear in her voice. "Thank God you are here. We have been waiting and hoping." "How many survivors, Doctor?" Jake asked, though he dreaded the answer. 3,012 people in 7 different shelters scattered across the continent. Most of the casualties happened in the first few minutes. The people who made it to the shelters survived, but we lost. She paused, wiping her eyes. "We lost so many." Jake felt anger building in his chest like a fire. 47,000 people. families, children, scientists who had never hurt anyone. Murdered by aliens who were too stupid or too crazy to tell the difference between a weapon factory and a flower garden. "We are coming down to get you," Jake told her. "Prepare the survivors for evacuation. Admiral, there is something else. Commander Lawson survived. He is badly hurt, but he managed to record the entire attack. The Zephyrian General, Webb, he called us a weapon development facility. He thought we were building superweapons." Jake almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. Superweapons? They thought singing flowers and healing plants were superweapons. "Commander Lawson wants to speak with you. He says it is important." A few minutes later, Jake was in a landing shuttle heading for the planet's surface. The flight down was heartbreaking. Everywhere he looked, he saw the ruins of human dreams. Farms where Earth and alien crops had grown together were now fields of ash. Art studios where painters had captured Haven's strange beauty were collapsed shells. The landing site was a flat area near Shelter 7, where the colonists had built their emergency facilities. As Jake stepped out of the shuttle, he smelled smoke and death in the air that had once carried the scent of alien flowers. Dr. Park met him at the shelter entrance. She was a small woman who had probably never seen violence before coming to Haven. Now she moved with the tired efficiency of someone who had spent days treating injuries that should never have happened. "Commander Lawson is in the medical bay," she said, leading Jake through corridors carved into the living rock. "He took shrapnel when the communication tower collapsed, but he would not rest until he could give you his report." Rick Lawson was lying on a medical bed with bandages covering half his face. His left arm was in a sling, and Jake could see other injuries hidden under the hospital gown. But his eyes were alert and angry. "Admiral," Rick said, trying to sit up, "I failed them. I was supposed to keep these people safe." "You saved 3,000 lives, Commander. You did your job. My job was to protect 50,000 lives." Rick's voice broke. "I had 6 security officers with stunners for wild animals. What was I supposed to do against battleships?" Jake sat down beside the bed. "Tell me what happened. Everything you remember." Rick closed his eyes and spoke in a voice that carried too much pain for one man. "General Webb contacted us about an hour before the attack. He demanded we surrender our weapon development programs. I tried to explain that we were a civilian colony, but he would not listen. He said we had 50,000 workers and military equipment. He thought we were building superweapons." "What military equipment?" "Quantum processors for our research computers, heavy machinery for mining and construction, the same equipment. Any large colony would have." Rick opened his eyes and looked at Jake. "But to someone looking for a fight, I guess it could look suspicious." Jake thought about that. The Zephyrians were losing their war badly. A desperate general might see threats where none existed. But that did not excuse what had happened here. Did Webb try to verify his intelligence? Did he ask for proof of what we were doing? No. He called me a liar and cut the transmission. Then the bombardment started. Rick's voice became very quiet. "I watched the school disappear, Admiral. I saw children running for the shelters while energy beams turned their playground into glass." Jake stood up, his hands clenched into fists. Somewhere out in space, General Webb was probably congratulating himself on striking a blow against human weapon development. He had no idea that he had actually created exactly what he feared most, a reason for humanity to build real weapons and use them. "Commander, I need you to upload all your records to our fleet database. Everything about the attack, the communications, the damage reports. All of it." "Yes, sir." "But Admiral, what happens now? What happens to the survivors?" Jake looked around the medical bay at the people who had lost everything. Men and women who had come to Haven seeking peace and discovery. Children who would never forget the day their world burned. We get them to safety. Then we make sure this never happens again. As Jake walked through the other shelters, he met more survivors. Tom Henderson had lost his wife Sarah in the attack. She had been in the community kitchen when the bombs fell. Now he sat quietly, holding a small alien flower that she had been growing in their garden. Katie Sullivan was in Shelter 3 with her father. Her mother had been teaching at the school during the bombardment. The 10-year-old girl who had once made flowers glow with her songs now sat silent and still, staring at nothing. "Katie," Jake said gently, kneeling beside her. "I am Admiral Morrison. I am here to help." She looked at him with eyes that seemed too old for her face. "Are you going to stop the bad ships?" "Yes," Jake said. "We are going to stop them." "Good." They hurt the singing trees. The flowers do not glow anymore. Jake felt something break inside his chest. This child had seen paradise destroyed by creatures who were too blind to recognize beauty when they found it. Later, as the evacuation ships loaded the survivors, Jake received a transmission that he had been expecting. General Webb was trying to contact Earth's fleet, probably realizing that his attack had consequences he had not planned for. "This is General Marcus Webb of the Zephyrian Empire," came the voice over the communication system. "I wish to speak with the human commander about a possible misunderstanding." Jake looked at the ruins of Haven, at the children boarding ships with nothing but the clothes they wore, at the fields of crystal flowers that would never sing again. "Put him through," Jake ordered. General Webb appeared on the screen, a tall alien with blue skin and too many teeth. He looked nervous, which was probably the first smart thing he had done in days. "Human Commander, I believe there may have been an error in our intelligence about your facility. If your people were truly civilians, the Zephyrian Empire regrets any unfortunate consequences." Jake stared at the alien general for a long moment. In the background, he could hear Katie Sullivan crying for her mother. "General Webb," Jake said in a voice as cold as deep space, "you attacked our children, you burned our schools, you murdered 47,000 innocent people, and now you want to call it an unfortunate misunderstanding." "If there was an error in judgment, there was no error, General. You made a choice. You chose to fire on civilians without verification. You chose to destroy a peaceful colony. You chose to start a war with humanity." Jake leaned forward. "Now you get to live with the consequences of that choice." Jake cut the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. "Commander Walsh, plot a course for the Zephyrian fleet. We have a war to finish." As the human fleet prepared to leave Haven's orbit, Jake took one last look at the planet that had been humanity's attempt at paradise. The aliens had destroyed the buildings and killed the people, but they had not understood what they were really attacking. They had attacked hope, and humanity would never forgive them for that. Captain Ben Rogers stood in the command center of the Terra Nova, studying star charts that showed Zephyrian supply routes. 3 weeks had passed since the attack on Haven, and the human fleet had become something the galaxy had never seen before. A hunting pack with a purpose. Their next supply convoy should pass through the Deneb system in 6 hours, reported Lieutenant Danny Brooks, the ship's navigation officer. Danny was young, maybe 25, but he had a gift for understanding alien flight patterns. 3 cargo ships with a destroyer escort. Ben nodded. The humans had learned to track Zephyrian movements by watching their supply lines. Every alien fleet needed food, fuel, and ammunition. Cut those supplies, and even the strongest warships became helpless drifters in space. How many civilians on those cargo ships? Ben asked. Intelligence suggests they are purely military supply vessels. No families, no non-combatants, just soldiers and war materials. That was important. The humans had made rules for their war. They would attack military targets, destroy war supplies, and hunt down the people responsible for Haven's destruction. But they would not become the kind of monsters who murdered innocent families. Prepare the stealth systems, Ben ordered. We go in quiet and fast. The Terra Nova was different now. Chief Engineer Tony Martinez had worked miracles in the past month, turning exploration ships into instruments of war. The Terra Nova's hull was covered with stealth plating that made it nearly invisible to alien sensors. Its mining lasers had been replaced with focused energy weapons that could cut through battleship armor. Its cargo bays now carried missiles that could track targets across solar systems. But the most important change was not in the technology. It was in the crew. The men and women who had once studied alien cultures and mapped distant stars had become soldiers with a mission. They had seen the pictures from Haven. They had met the survivors. They knew what they were fighting for. Stealth. Systems active, reported Engineer Martinez from the engine room. We are now a ghost ship, Captain. Their sensors will not see us coming. Ben smiled grimly. The Zephyrians still thought like the aliens they were, believing that bigger ships and stronger weapons always won battles. They had not learned to think like humans, who won wars by being smarter, faster, and more determined than their enemies. Take us into the Deneb system, Danny. Nice and quiet. The Terra Nova slipped through hyperspace like a shark moving through dark water. When they emerged near Deneb, the Zephyrian convoy was exactly where intelligence had predicted. 3 large cargo ships surrounded by a destroyer that looked powerful but moved slowly. All ships on course and speed, Danny reported. The destroyer is scanning for threats, but they are not looking in our direction. Ben studied the tactical display. The cargo ships were loaded with supplies for General Webb's fleet. Food that would feed soldiers who had murdered children. Fuel that would power ships that had burned schools. Weapons that would be used to kill more innocent people. Target the destroyer first, Ben ordered. We take out their escort, then deal with the cargo ships. Sir, called Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell from the weapons station. Targeting solution locked. All weapons ready. Fire. The Terra Nova's weapons lit up space like lightning. Energy beams designed to cut through asteroids tore through the destroyer's shields as if they were made of paper. The alien ship, built for fighting other aliens, had never faced weapons designed by human engineers who understood that the best defense was not to be where the enemy was shooting. The destroyer tried to turn and fight, but human ships moved differently than alien vessels. Where the Zephyrians relied on heavy armor and big guns, humans used speed and precision. The Terra Nova danced around the larger ship like a boxer fighting a bull, striking hard and moving away before the enemy could respond. Enemy destroyer. Disabled, Sarah reported. Main engines offline, weapons systems destroyed. Signal them to abandon ship, Ben ordered. Give them 10 minutes to get to the life pods. This was another human rule. They would destroy ships and equipment, but they would not murder helpless crews. The Zephyrians had attacked civilians, but humans would not sink to that level. Sir, the cargo ships are trying to run, Danny called out. They are heading for the hyperspace jump point. Stop them, Ben said. Target their engines only. I want those ships intact. The cargo vessels were not warships. They had light shields and no real weapons. The Terra Nova's precise fire disabled. Their engines in minutes, leaving them drifting helplessly in space. This is Captain Rogers of the Earth vessel Terra Nova. Ben broadcast to the cargo ships. "You are carrying supplies for the fleet that attacked our civilian colony. We are confiscating those supplies. Abandon your ships immediately." The alien cargo ship captains did not argue. They had heard stories about the human fleet, tales of ships that appeared from nowhere and struck like ghosts. Within minutes, life pods were launching from all three vessels. "Board the cargo ships," Ben ordered. "Take everything useful and plant demolition charges. When we are done, those ships become space debris." Commander Susan Walsh's team moved through the cargo ships like professionals. They took food that could feed human colonies, medical supplies that could help Haven survivors, and technical equipment that Earth's engineers could study. The weapons and ammunition went into space, scattered into the system's star where they would burn harmlessly. But the most important cargo was information. The ship computers contained records of Zephyrian fleet movements, supply schedules, and communication codes. Within hours, human intelligence would know where every enemy ship was heading and what they were planning. "Captain," called Lieutenant Mitchell from the communication station. "We are receiving a transmission from the life pods. The destroyer captain wants to speak with you." Ben accepted the transmission. On his screen appeared a blue-skinned Zephyrian officer with the marks of command on his uniform. The alien looked angry and confused. "Human vessel. I am Captain Zorks of the Destroyer Vengeance. You have attacked a legitimate military convoy in neutral space. This is an act of war." Ben almost laughed. "Captain, your empire attacked our civilian colony 3 weeks ago. Your ships murdered 47,000 innocent people, including children. The war started when you opened fire on our schools. That was a military target. Your facility was developing weapons. Our facility was studying plants and teaching children to read. But you were too stupid or too arrogant to verify your intelligence before you started shooting." Ben's voice turned cold. "Now you get to explain to your superiors why their supply convoy is space dust. The Zephyrian Empire will not tolerate these attacks on our vessels. The Zephyrian Empire should have thought about that before they murdered our families. You started this war, Captain. We are just going to finish it." Ben cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "Set course for the next target. Intelligence reports a fuel depot in the Vega system. Let us go turn off their lights." Over the following weeks, the human fleet struck again and again. They hit supply convoys, fuel depots, communication relays, and repair stations. Every target was chosen carefully, every attack planned perfectly. The humans fought like no enemy the Zephyrians had ever faced. Where alien fleets moved in predictable formations, human ships struck from unexpected directions. Where aliens relied on heavy firepower, humans used speed and stealth. Where alien commanders followed rigid battle plans, human captains adapted and improvised. General Webb's fleet began to run short of supplies. His ships could not refuel at captured stations because the stations had been destroyed. His soldiers went on half rations because the supply convoys never arrived. His communication with Fleet Command became sporadic because the relay stations were smoking ruins. "Sir," Captain Vex reported to General Webb aboard his flagship, "we have lost contact with 7 supply convoys in the past 2 weeks. Our fuel reserves are down to 30%. The human ships are everywhere and nowhere." Webb stared at the tactical display showing the locations of attacks. There was no pattern he could understand, no strategy he could predict. The humans hit wherever they wanted, whenever they wanted, then vanished before reinforcements could arrive. "How many ships are they using?" Webb demanded. "Unknown, sir. Sometimes we detect 1 vessel, sometimes 3, sometimes none at all. They have some kind of stealth technology that makes tracking them nearly impossible." Webb slammed his fist on the command console. He had wanted to prevent humanity from developing superweapons. Instead, he had created an enemy that was more dangerous than any weapon. The humans fought with a cold precision that terrified his crews and a determination that never seemed to break. "Sir," Vex continued carefully, "perhaps we should consider contacting Earth directly. Offer reparations for the Haven incident. Negotiate a ceasefire." "No!" Webb shouted. "The Zephyrian Empire does not negotiate with inferior species. We will find their ships and destroy them all." But even as he spoke, Webb knew he was lying. His fleet was being systematically dismantled by an enemy he could not catch, could not predict, and could not understand. The humans had turned his own tactics against him, attacking supply lines and support systems while avoiding direct confrontation. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Earth vessel Defiance, watching the Vega Prime system grow larger on the main screen. After 6 weeks of hunting General Webb's fleet across the galaxy, the chase was finally coming to an end. The Zephyrian commander had made his last stand at their strongest fortress, a massive space station orbiting a dead planet where they stored their most powerful weapons. "Long-range sensors confirm it, Admiral," reported Captain Susan Walsh from the destroyer Retribution. "Webb's entire remaining fleet is docked at Vega Prime. 15 battleships, 30 destroyers, and the station's defensive platforms. They are not running anymore." Jake nodded. Webb had finally realized that he could not win a running battle against human hit-and-run tactics. So he had gathered his remaining forces at the most defensible position he could find, hoping to make the humans pay a terrible price for their victory. "How many people on the station?" Jake asked. "Intelligence estimates 50,000 military personnel and maybe 20,000 civilian contractors, families, engineers, dock workers." Jake thought about those numbers. 70,000 lives, including innocent people who had nothing to do with Haven's destruction. The old Jake Morrison, the one who existed before children died in alien fire, might have hesitated. But the Admiral who stood here now had learned hard lessons about the cost of mercy when dealing with those who showed none. "Open a channel to Vega Prime," Jake ordered. The main screen activated, showing the face of General Marcus Webb. The alien commander looked older than he had 6 weeks ago. His blue skin was pale, his eyes were bloodshot, and the confident arrogance was gone. In its place was the desperate fury of a cornered animal. "Admiral Morrison," Webb said, his voice tight with control. "I wondered when you would finally face me directly instead of skulking in the shadows like a coward." "I am here now, General. Are you ready to surrender and face justice for the massacre at Haven?" Webb's laugh was bitter and broken. "Justice? You humans speak of justice while you destroy supply convoys and murder innocent soldiers. You are no better than we are. We gave your soldiers a chance to abandon their ships. We took prisoners. We followed the rules of war." Jake's voice became cold as deep space. "You opened fire on a school playground. There is a difference. Your facility was developing weapons. Our facility was growing flowers and teaching children to read. But you were too proud to verify your intelligence, too angry to ask questions, too stupid to tell the difference between a garden and a gun factory." Webb's composure finally cracked. "It does not matter now. I have the strongest fleet position in this sector. You cannot take Vega Prime without losing half your ships. Are your dead colonists worth that price?" Jake looked around his bridge, at the men and women who had followed him across the galaxy. Captain Ben Rogers, whose exploration ship had become a hunter-killer. Chief Engineer Tony Martinez, who had turned mining equipment into instruments of war. Dr. Amy Phillips, one of the few scientists to escape Haven alive, now serving as a tactical advisor because she understood better than anyone what they were. Fighting for Dr. Phillips, Jake said quietly. Tell the General about Katie Sullivan. Amy stepped forward, her face composed but her eyes burning with controlled fury. Katie was 10 years old, General Webb. She loved to sing to the alien flowers and watch them glow. She could make friends with any creature on Haven, from the crystal butterflies to the singing trees. She was learning to read in 3 languages and wanted to be a scientist like her mother. I do not see why one human child... Her mother was teaching at the school when your ships opened fire. Katie watched her mother burn alive through a classroom window. Now she sits in a refugee center on Earth, staring at nothing, too traumatized to speak. She has not said a word since we found her. Webb was silent for a moment. Then he straightened, in his chair, his alien features hardening. War has casualties. I regret the child's loss, but nothing, Jake interrupted. You destroyed that child's world because you were losing your war and needed someone to blame. You turned a 10-year-old girl into an orphan because you were too weak to face your own failures. And now you want to negotiate? Then come and take the station, Webb shouted. See how many of your own people die for your revenge. Jake studied the tactical display. Vega Prime was indeed a fortress. Heavy shields, powerful weapons, and a fleet that could put up a serious fight even in their weakened state. A direct assault would cost hundreds of human lives, maybe thousands. But humans had not survived the global conflicts by always choosing the direct approach. Dr. Phillips, what do you know about Zephyrian life support systems? Jake asked. Amy smiled for the first time since Haven's destruction. They use a centralized atmospheric processing system, Admiral. Very efficient, but vulnerable if you know where to target it. Captain Rogers, I need your stealth ships to get close to that station without being detected. Can you do it? Ben's voice came over the communication system from the Terra Nova. Sir, my ships can get close enough to count the rivets on their hull plating. What do you need us to do? Jake turned back to the screen where Webb was waiting. General, I am going to give you one last chance. Surrender now. Hand over everyone responsible for the Haven attack, and we will accept the survival of your remaining forces. Never. The Zephyrian Empire does not bow to inferior species. Then you have chosen. Jake cut the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. Begin the assault. All ships, attack pattern Morrison 7. The human fleet moved like a pack of wolves circling a wounded bear. The heavy battleships drew the station's fire while the smaller, faster ships darted in to attack specific targets. But this was not a direct assault. It was a carefully orchestrated dance, designed to confuse and distract. Admiral, called Captain Walsh, the station's shields are holding. We are not doing significant damage to their main structure. We are not trying to damage their main structure yet, Jake replied. Keep their attention focused on you. Rogers, are you in position? Affirmative, Admiral. We are 20 meters from their atmospheric processing intake. The stealth systems are holding. Target the main air recycling plant. When I give the signal, put it out of commission. Sir, Amy said quietly, that will affect the entire station, military and civilian areas. The civilians will have time to get to emergency shelters. The military will have a choice: surrender or suffocate. On the main screen, Vega Prime looked like an angry metal mountain spitting fire at the human fleet. Its weapons blazed continuously, and several human ships showed damage from the intense bombardment. But the station's commanders were focused on the obvious threat, not the invisible danger creeping up behind them. Now, Rogers, hit them. The Terra Nova's weapons fired once, a precisely targeted beam that struck the station's atmospheric processing plant. The explosion was small but perfectly placed, destroying the delicate machinery that kept 70,000 beings breathing. Within minutes, alarms began sounding throughout Vega Prime. Emergency systems activated, and civilians started moving toward the protected areas with their own air supplies. But the military sections, designed for combat rather than survival, began to lose atmosphere pressure. Jake opened a channel to the station. General Webb, your life support system is failing. You have 30 minutes of breathable air in the military sections, maybe an hour in the civilian areas. Surrender now, and we will provide assistance. Webb's face appeared on screen again, this time wearing an emergency breathing mask. Behind him, Jake could see Zephyrian soldiers struggling with their own masks as the air grew thin. "You are murdering non-combatants," Webb gasped. "We are giving non-combatants time to reach safety while military personnel face the consequences of their choices. Just like you gave our children time to reach safety when you bombarded their schools. This is not how civilized species conduct war." Jake felt something cold and final settle in his chest. "General, you lost the right to lecture us about civilization the moment you opened fire on a playground. You want to see how humans conduct war when we stop being civilized? Keep refusing to surrender." For 10 minutes, Webb held out while his soldiers slowly suffocated. Then, as the first Zephyrian troops began collapsing from lack of oxygen, he finally broke. "We surrender. Please, restore our life support. Release all civilian personnel to the emergency shelters first. Then order your remaining military forces to lay down their weapons and report to the docking bays for processing. And then you will restore our air?" Jake looked at Dr. Phillips, thinking about Katie Sullivan sitting silently in a refugee center. "Then we will decide if you deserve to breathe." The surrender took 3 hours. Zephyrian civilians were evacuated to safety, while military personnel were taken into custody aboard human ships. General Webb himself was transported to the Defiance under heavy guard, his hands bound and his head down in defeat. When Jake finally met him face-to-face in the ship's detention area, the alien commander looked like a broken old soldier who had finally realized the true cost of his decisions. "Human Admiral," Webb said quietly, "I did not know your people were truly civilians. My intelligence suggested weapons development. Your intelligence was wrong. But more importantly, you did not care." 6 months after the surrender at Vega Prime, President Lisa Carter stood before the Galactic Assembly on the space station Harmony, built in neutral space, where the 3 alien empires had once fought their endless war. The chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of worlds, all watching the human leader who had changed everything. Behind Carter, on a massive screen, images of Haven played silently. The singing trees before they were burned, the crystal flowers before they were shattered, children playing in gardens that no longer existed, and finally, the memorial wall where 47,000 names were carved in stone that would last forever. "Honored delegates," Carter began, her voice carrying across the chamber. 6 months ago, General Marcus Webb of the Zephyrian Empire made a decision that changed the galaxy. He chose to attack a civilian colony based on incomplete intelligence and prejudiced assumptions. He chose to murder families, destroy schools, and burn hospitals. He chose to start a war with humanity. In the audience, Admiral Jake Morrison sat with the other Earth delegates. Beside him was Dr. Amy Phillips, now serving as Earth's science advisor. Near the back, he could see Captain Ben Rogers and Chief Engineer Tony Martinez, heroes of the war that no one had wanted to fight. General Webb stood trial on Earth, Carter continued. He faced the survivors of his attack. He listened as Dr. Lisa Park described pulling children from burning buildings. He watched video testimony from Tom Henderson, who lost his wife in the bombing. He heard 10-year-old Katie Sullivan speak her first words since the attack, asking him why he had hurt the singing trees. Carter paused, letting that image settle in the minds of the alien delegates. A human child asking an alien general why he had destroyed beauty for no reason. After hearing all the evidence, General Webb was found guilty of war crimes against civilian populations. But his sentence was not death. It was not life imprisonment. His sentence was to spend the remainder of his life working to rebuild what he destroyed, helping to create the peace he had shattered. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The aliens had expected human vengeance, not human justice. "The war is over," Carter declared. "All of it. The three-way conflict that consumed this galaxy for years has ended, not because one side won, but because humanity has decided there will be no more sides. From this day forward, Earth will serve as the guarantor of galactic peace." Ambassador Krell of the Zephyrian Empire rose from his seat. He was a different kind of Zephyrian than Webb, younger and more thoughtful. "President Carter, the Zephyrian Empire accepts Earth's authority in this matter, but we must ask, what gives humanity the right to impose peace on sovereign worlds?" Carter's expression became cold as space. "The right of victims to ensure their suffering never happens again. The right of the strong to protect the weak. The right earned by 47,000 graves on a world that wanted only to study flowers and teach children." She activated another display, showing star maps with new symbols. "The Galactic Protection Force is now operational. Human ships patrol the major trade routes. Human stations monitor communications between potentially hostile fleets. Human diplomats mediate disputes before they become wars." Admiral Morrison stood to address the assembly. "The GPF currently consists of 60 warships and 30 support vessels, all crewed by volunteers from the Earth Defense Fleet. Our mission is simple: prevent another haven. We will stop conflicts before they start, protect civilians in war zones, and hunt down anyone who targets innocent populations." Captain Rogers stepped forward from the back of the chamber. "The Terra Nova and her sister ships continue their original mission of exploration and research. But now they also serve as early warning systems, monitoring for signs of aggression or militarization. We have learned that the price of peace is constant vigilance." Ambassador Thek of the Valorian Republic, a tall humanoid with silver skin, raised his hand. "What of our own defense forces? Are we expected to disarm completely?" "No," Carter replied. "You may maintain whatever military forces you deem necessary for legitimate defense. But those forces will operate under new rules. No weapons of planetary destruction. No attacks on civilian targets. No wars of conquest or expansion. Any violation of these rules will bring the full weight of human intervention." The Keth Collective's representative, a being that looked like living crystal, pulsed with different colors as it spoke. "The Collective questions the long-term viability of human peacekeeping. Your species is still young and unpredictable. What happens when Earth grows tired of playing galactic police?" Carter smiled for the first time during the session. "We will not grow tired, Ambassador. Do you know why? Because somewhere on Earth, Katie Sullivan is learning to smile again. She is back in school, studying alien biology and asking questions about the crystal flowers she used to sing to. Every day she heals a little more from what your wars did to her, and every day she reminds us why this peace is worth protecting. Dr. Phillips stepped forward to the podium. Haven Colony is being rebuilt, not as it was, but as something new. A joint research facility where scientists from all our species work together to understand the universe. The singing trees are growing again, planted from seeds that survived in the underground shelters. The crystal flowers are blooming in new patterns, and children from Earth, Zephyria, Valoria, and the Collective play together in gardens where their parents once pointed weapons at each other. The assembly fell silent as Phillips activated a new display. It showed the rebuilt haven, with structures that blended human, Zephyrian, Valorian, and Keth designs into something beautiful and unified. Children of multiple species could be seen, learning together, playing together, growing up in a world where their differences were celebrated rather than feared. This is what we are fighting for, Phillips continued. Not human dominance or alien submission, not conquest or control. We are fighting for a galaxy where children like Katie Sullivan can grow up safe, where scientists can study beauty without fear, where families can build homes without worry that someone will burn them down out of ignorance or hate. Ambassador, Krell stood again. President Carter, if the Zephyrian Empire agrees to these new accords, what assurance do we have that Earth will not use its military superiority for conquest? Carter looked directly at the Zephyrian delegate. Because, Ambassador, we have already had our fill of conquest and destruction. 50 years ago, humans almost destroyed their own world in global wars. We learned the hard way that victory in battle does not bring peace to the heart. We choose to be guardians because we have seen what happens when no one guards the innocent. Jake Morrison thought about the past months, about the changes that had swept through human space and beyond. Earth's shipyards now built not just warships, but medical vessels that responded to disasters across the galaxy. Human teachers worked on alien worlds, sharing knowledge and learning from other cultures. Human engineers helped rebuild war-torn planets, turning former battlefields into farms and schools. But most importantly, human children like Katie Sullivan were healing. They were learning to trust again, to explore again, to dream of futures where different species work together instead of against each other. The vote will now be taken, Carter announced. All in favor of the Galactic Peace Accords and the establishment of Earth's peacekeeping authority? One by one, the delegates voted. The Zephyrian Empire, chastened by defeat and genuinely remorseful for Haven's destruction. The Valorian Republic, relieved to end a war that had cost them so much. The Keth Collective, intrigued by the concept of imposed harmony. Dozens of smaller worlds and colonies tired of living in fear. The final tally was overwhelming. 847 votes in favor, 23 opposed, 56 abstentions. The motion carries, Carter declared. The Galactic Peace Accords are now in effect. The age of interstellar warfare is over. As the assembly broke up and delegates began making plans for their new peaceful galaxy, Jake Morrison found himself standing with his fellow veterans of the Haven War. They had accomplished something unprecedented. They had used military force to create lasting peace. "Admiral," said Captain Rogers, "do you think it will hold? This peace we have built?" Jake looked out through the station's viewing ports at the stars, where human patrol ships maintained their vigilant watch. Somewhere out there, Katie Sullivan was growing up in a galaxy where her children would never have to fear alien ships, dropping fire from the sky. It will hold, Ben, because we will make sure it holds. Because 47,000 people died to teach us the price of letting hatred win over hope. Because children deserve to sing to flowers without fear. Dr. Phillips joined them at the window. The galaxy is vast, Admiral. There will always be new threats, new conflicts, new reasons for war. Then we will face them, Jake replied. All of us, together. Because that is what we learned at Haven. That peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of people willing to fight for something better. As the three humans watched, a transport ship approached the station. Through its windows, they could see passengers of multiple species traveling together, sharing the same space, breathing the same air, living in the same peace that human sacrifice had made possible. Katie Sullivan's war was over. Her galaxy was safe. Her flowers would sing again, and somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, human ships stood guard, making sure.